This is the Commercial Real Estate Inside Podcast. I'm Steve Hamoen, and it's 8 a.m. on Thursday, April 3rd, 2025. And here's what we're covering today. Canada's advantaged position under U.S. tariffs and how a North American first supply chain strategy could reshape CRE in Ontario, and how emerging real estate asset classes aligned with nearshoring and trade compliance give Canada an advantage. Also, we'll cover how U.S. digital service tariffs escalated against Europe, but not Canada. Canada remains insulated. This could potentially boost CRE demands for hybrid office and flex tech spaces. On April 2nd, 2025, the U.S. government implemented a 10% baseline tariff on most global imports, with elevated rates for specific countries such as 34% for China, 25% for Canada and Mexico on non-compliant goods, and up to 54% on some specific sectors. However, there's a caveat. Under the USMCA, Canadian goods that meet origin and content requirements remain tariff exempt. Well, this creates a strategic incentive for Canadians to reinforce trade alignment and compliance rather than pursue a broad-based retaliatory measure. This position offers a foundation to attract investment, expand trade, and reposition Canada as a core component in the North American first industrial and logistical corridor. First, let's consider manufacturing and industrial real estate implications. U.S.-based firms affected by rising costs from the global outsourcing are expected to reallocate supply chains to North America. Canada's proximity, combined with its preferential access under the USMCA, positions as a feasible nearshoring destination. Under USMCA rules, automotive and heavy manufacturing must meet specific thresholds, such as a 75% regional value content and sourcing steel from North America to qualify for tariff exemptions. Industrial zones in Ontario cities like Kitchener, Cambridge, London offer the infrastructure and the workforce needed to supply and support such shifts. The proposition is clear. Developers and investors could align their capital strategy with near-shoring activity, emphasizing logistic parks, Tier 2 supply facilities, and multi-tenanted light industrial units. Second, the services economy remains largely unaffected by the U.S. tariff structure. Services such as IT, legal, consulting, and finances are protected under Chapter 15 of the USMCA, which ensures national treatment and cross-border access. In contrast, the U.S. retaliation against the digital services taxes, or the DST, has been directed towards the EU countries. Canada, not having finalized or enforced DST, currently avoids those consequences. This status may allow Canadian-based service firms to continue to operate without interruption in the U.S. market. Consequently, and for office space, flex spaces, especially in suburban Toronto, Kitchener, Waterloo, and Ottawa, expected to remain stable or even increase. CRE owners in these regions may be able to explore opportunities to retrofit or reposition space for hybrid service providers and back office expansion. Third, agriculture, energy, and redevelopment sectors present huge structural opportunities. Look, Canadian agriculture exports, including dairy, wheat, and meat, retain U.S. market access under tariff exemptions. Meanwhile, competitors from the EU, Brazil face increased barriers. Energy exports like liquid natural gas, crude, and electricity are also unaffected by the new tariffs, reinforcing Canadians' role as a stable North American energy partner. This shift in trade patterns could generate demand for cold storage, energy transport nodes, and agri-industrial hubs. Real estate redevelopment and aligns with these categories, particularly along the 401 corridor, and particularly in brownfield sites near legacy manufacturing, could benefit from capital inflows and increased tenant activity. Redevelopment opportunities are especially relevant in Chatham-Kent, Windsor, and Hamilton, where industrial lands are underutilized but zoned for intensive logistical and energy reprocessing. Investors may evaluate these markets for repositioning into a modernized facility that meets compliance and ESG standards for North America trade. 4, economic forecasts that support a cooperative posture over retaliation. Canada's March 2025 retaliation measure with 25% tariffs on U.S. goods valued at $60 billion introduced a very temporary pressure, but projections suggest continued retaliation could reduce GDP growth to near zero conditions in 2025 and create further contraction in 2026. Alternatively, maintaining alignment with the USMCA and pursuing diplomatic or multilateral channels could stabilize GDP growth between 1.5 and 2%, with an upside potential if foreign direct investment increases. This forecast is contingent on predictable trade policy, stable cross-border supply chains, and the ability to serve as North American gateway for the United States, bound in product and service. Commercial real estate sectors that benefit the most when interest rates remain stable and when capital markets anticipate sustained economic activity. A cooperative trade stance contributes to these preconditions. Now let's look at strategic implications for commercial real estate. Industrial land. Prioritize regions with zoning that are aligned to manufacturing, warehousing, and cross-docking, especially in Ontario and Quebec. Look for mixed-use development. Evaluate brownfields properties for repositioning multi-use and industrial and logistical campuses near infrastructure nodes. When looking at office and flex redeployment, support digital trade firms and back office expansion with Class B conversion, maybe some modular fit-outs in regional tech hubs. When looking at supply chain anchoring, focus on cross-border connectivity assets, intermodal hubs, distribution corridors, and storage-intensive warehousing. In conclusion, the prevailing trade environment, while disruptive globally, positions Canada to serve as the central node in a North American manufacturing and service ecosystem. The USMCA framework provides a structural incentives for realignment over retaliation. Real estate sectors that enable, house, or service compliant economic activity, particularly in industrial and mixed use, and even office flex space, stand to benefit from policy-driven demand, not retaliation. Stakeholders are encouraged to monitor compliance thresholds, trade policy developments, federal incentives such as the EDC, Economic Development Canada's financing programs, when evaluating strategic assets in the months ahead. Now that's all for now. We'll be back tomorrow. Don't forget to follow, subscribe, and leave a comment. Until next time, I'm Steve Hamoen. We'll see you on the next one.